You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Keith Schaefer, editor and publisher of the Oil and Gas Investments Bulletin. Welcome to the show, Keith.
Morning, Jim.
Some bad news from the U.S. about a pipeline. Maybe explain.
Oh, well, actually, it's bad news for Canada. It's not bad news for the Americans. In fact, it's very good news for a huge chunk of Americans all throughout the Midwest. What's happening, Jim, is that a huge pipeline that used to take gas, natural gas, from Wyoming through to Ohio is now going to reverse course. And it's probably the poster child for just how much the entire energy complex in North America has been turned upside down by the shale gas revolution of the last 5-6 years. So Kinder Morgan, pretty big company, they spent $4 to $6 billion getting ready to take gas from the Rockies, which was the lowest cost gas in the United States 6-7 years ago, over to the U.S. Northeast. And that just makes perfect sense because that's where all the people are in the States. It's where all the high cost markets are. So they were going to make a fortune on it. It just made perfect sense. But then a strange thing happened on the way to the forum, and that was that this big new gas formation in Pennsylvania, in New York State, called the Marcellus, came on like gangbusters, and it was incredibly low-cost gas. It was like so cheap, and the wells were coming online with so much more production than the market had ever seen before, like 10, 20, 30, 40. We've even seen 55, 57 million cubic feet a day come out of these wells when they start up, which is just unbelievable. Like most wells in Canada wouldn't even have 1 million cubic feet a day. So it's just it was an unbelievable discovery. And what it meant was that basically all the gas to the northeast was now going to be supplied out of the Marcellus, and it didn't need the Wyoming gas. And in fact, this gas is so much cheaper and so much more prolific that they are now, on August 1st, this coming weekend, after all the process and approvals and the logistics, they are going to reverse that massive pipeline and send gas from the Marcellus in Pennsylvania out to the Rockies. And that that goes through Chicago. And that's really bad news for Canadian gas companies, because the Marcellus, a few years ago when it really got going, took away our gas markets in the U.S. Northeast, and it's even taken away some of our gas markets in Ontario and Quebec now, Jim. So this has had a huge impact, and now Chicago, which is one of our main markets for our export gas, is probably going to get impacted, like in a big way, very, very quickly, because our gas is twice the price of Marcellus gas. So we could see Canadian gas get shut out of the Midwest to a large degree in very short time, which of course would just back up gas into Alberta and lower prices here. And this industry in Canada, Jim, they've already had the living daylights kicked out of it with low prices and everything so far, but this could be the next big shoe to drop, and it's going to drop really hard, and it's going to drop really fast.
So will consumers see lower prices because of this?
Oh, I'd like to think so, Jim, but I got to tell you, from my own personal experience, when I see how much gas has come down in price from like $14 a million cubic feet 6 years ago to $2.50 now, I don't think my gas bill's gone down near that much. It's kind of frustrating. So I don't know. I somehow doubt that. Gets my blood boiling a bit if I think about it too much, I guess. But I don't see that happening in a big way.
Does this news mean it's probably a good thing BC signed this 25-year deal with Petronas?
Oh, Jim, we need LNG. Western Canada basically has almost no market for its gas other than what it needs domestically here, and we've been very lucky that the west coast of California, the west coast of the U.S., has been in a big drought, so they've had almost no hydroelectric power. So we've been able to increase our exports to the western United States in a huge way. And if we didn't have that, Jim, it would be even uglier in Calgary than it is now. Like so we definitely need that LNG market for our industry to survive. And as much as people think of Western Canada and the oil sands, but the reality is that outside of Fort McMurray, Canada is almost all gas. And so it's we really need that LNG. Canadian gas is literally a binary trade on whether LNG gets off the ground or not.
And we have word that BC Energy Minister Mike de Jong is in Malaysia, and that construction could start relatively soon on this deal with Petronas.
Yeah, news reports out of Malaysia are pretty bullish for LNG. You know, despite LNG pricing being pretty low right now, these guys obviously take 20, 30, 40-year visions, and so over that time, they're pretty confident they're going to be able to get make some money doing it. And of course, these LNG companies like Petronas, they want different suppliers, right? They don't want to have to just buy from either Putin in Russia or the Qataris, who are very vulnerable right there in the Strait of Hormuz in the Middle East. So it's good for them to have a diversified supply. So Australia's coming on, and for them to have a big ownership position in Canada, to me, makes a lot of sense. So the latest bit out of Mike de Jong's office, the BC government, is that, yeah, we could see some earth moving happen as early as this September, which would be awesome for, the economy here. That's what we need after the big shutdown in Alberta with low oil prices.
We'll have more with Keith Schaefer right after this.
More and more people are looking to the Internet for intelligent, riveting, and thought-provoking interviews. To advertise on The Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com, call 604-699-8600, 604-699-8600.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Keith Schaefer, editor and publisher of the Oil and Gas Investments Bulletin. Keith, the oil spill from a pipeline in northern Alberta near the oil sands, the Nexen pipeline, somehow 31,500 barrels of bitumen escaped from their new pipeline, covering a couple of football fields with what we can see, and it wasn't detected for over 2 weeks. Has this really been another body blow for people trying to get pipelines built?
Yeah, I'm really kind of surprised that this is happening these days. Obviously these pipelines go through some very remote country. At the same time, the industry keeps telling us that they've got all new technology that they're using to mitigate things, and that new pipelines beat old pipelines, and all those things are true. But it's pretty disheartening to see stuff like this happen. I know 31,500 barrels of bitumen doesn't sounds like a lot. Like I say, it's actually only a couple hundred square yards of ground coverage, but it just goes to show that the industry really could be doing a little bit more at a minimum to ensure public safety around the pipelines.
Well, apparently it was caused by a faulty weld. Why didn't the internal X-rays find this faulty weld? That's
a great question, and we're going to find that out over the next couple of months. But it just gives so much fodder to the anti-pipeline people. And of course, you got to remember, Jim, these anti-pipeline people, they're up here. There's pipelines getting built all over the United States right now. The U.S. pipeline industry is going crazy installing pipe all around the U.S. It's just up here, people have really focused attention in on stuff around the oil sands.
And of course, oil sands have been the target of propaganda funded by the Saudis and Qatar and so on. Again, I'm sure they're going to throw a few $1,000 into their PR machine to point out the fault with this pipeline.
Could be, Jim. I'm not familiar with that, but that's quite possible.
Well, if the pipelines don't go through, or is it too late for the Canadian industry already? With the U.S. just flooded with natural gas and they're reversing the pipeline from Pennsylvania, is it too late for Canada to really try to boost the economy with the construction of pipelines? No.
It's never too late. There's just too much money on the line, Jim. Too much money on a line. Like, you can't stop trying to move it forward. You have to do a better job at your liaison with the communities and treating them with respect. Like, you really have to understand that the game has changed. Like, 4 years ago, pipelines, nobody cared about pipelines, but now everybody cares about pipelines, and we can debate the merits of whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, but the reality is that there's so much money on the line between both oil and gas transport, that we have to keep working together to find a way to get either to get everybody happy, Jim, or to get everybody annoyed the same amount.
It sounds like the balancing act politicians try to pull off.
Mm-hmm.
Keith, anything else you wanted to add today?
Well, I just think, Jim, that right now oil and gas prices look like they're going to bottom out here sometime towards the end of Q3, is my guess. And towards the end of Q3, early Q4, if we see any signs of tightening in the oil market, if we see any sign of tightening in the gas market, now both those things I think are quite possible. Investors could be setting themselves up for a great 2016 because valuations now have just been crushed.
Has the Nexan spill bad publicity hurt the stocks in the pipeline business?
Their stock charts are fantastic. Pipeline companies have the best stock charts of any sector, almost of any sector in the entire market. Like, just forget energy. Go to any up until 3 months ago, they had a 4-year run that was just, straight up at a 30-degree pace, no volatility. And so they had all the ability in the world to raise money if they needed it,
Keith, thanks a lot for chatting with us.
Jim, God bless you. Chat in a couple weeks.
My guest has been Keith Schaefer, editor and publisher of the Oil and Gas Investments Bulletin, the website oilandgas-investments.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Check out our popular YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. Comments or questions for the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.